This. All right, everybody, thank you all for joining us today. I'm Heather Roxburgh with Real Broker in Salt Lake City. Most of you know who I am, and I also am a co-owner of Be Epic Marketing with Kat, my partner over here. Each month we do a monthly strategy webinar on tips and tricks about marketing, or we bring on really cool people like Craig today to just teach us things that we can do to implement or to grow in our businesses and just maybe implement some pillars. So
Hi,
Craig,
honey.
oh, who's this? Mute. I think that's who it needed to be. She was saying hi, honey, to you. So Craig O'Boyle is a very dear friend of mine. We were just chatting before everybody came on about how I kind of probably met you that time and really connected in 2011 at a peak.
That's right.
At a bar, of course. We were hanging out. That's what we do best after the event was over. But Craig's been a very dear friend of mine over all these years. He's an amazing entrepreneur, has owned many businesses, and he's been in real estate almost 30 years. So 30 years in October since 1995, has a team in Colorado Springs. And then in 2022, Craig started a business, Assumption Solutions, to help people with assumption loans. And I'm really excited to learn today because they keep coming up a little bit in my world. I learned a couple months ago that you owned a company, which I was not aware of, that you guys handle assumption loans. And so Craig, I'm going to let you kind of take it from here and teach us all the things and how to grow our business using that pillar.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I see a lot of familiar faces on here that I've known from the same event that I know you through. So that's kind of cool. I'm kind of surprised you didn't know we had this until that long ago, because I know I gave you a pop by at one of the events, but that's all right. Heather, you are always going a million miles an hour and in a lot of directions, so I'm sure it's easy to forget. So
I gave it to Cassie. I'm sure.
right. Somebody else I should have been talking to probably.
I'm like, make sure that here's the pop by.
Right. So let's see here. I'm going to share my screen and I'll go through my presentation, and then feel free to jump in with questions at the end, or put them in the comments. I think that's often the best, and I'll try and go and make this as efficient as possible so everybody can get on with their day. All right, let's see here. If I don't mess up the tech, that's always the key.
That's what I'm not good at.
Are we good? Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I did it right. So, all right. So, as Heather said, I own a real estate company in Colorado Springs called the O'Boyle Real Estate Group. In 2022, I saw an opportunity, and so with a partner, I created a company called Assumption Solutions. And what we're going to talk about today is what we do in that company and really the opportunity it represents here. So, we'll start with a little bit of humor to keep it light. If you could tell all your clients that they could go back in time and buy a house at sub 3.5%, do you think you'd get a lot of people out of the gate? Right. Well, this meme to me exemplifies the opportunity, because doing an assumption, interest rates are about as low as this truck. And I feel really special every time I pull this thing up, because I actually shot this picture in a Home Depot parking lot. And this was the first meme I ever made. So I hope you get a little chuckle out of it. So, all right. Now with the corny humor past, let's talk about what we're going to go over. We'll talk about the mortgage loan assumption overview, assumable loan types and the eligibility for them. I'll nerd out a little bit here and talk about the value of a loan assumption. We'll talk about the assumption process steps that you go through and that we take you through. We'll talk about the pricing we charge at Assumption Solutions to assist in the process, and then some of the evolving market things that have come up since we started this in 22. I always love doing new webinars because this market has changed a lot since we started. Then I will throw my realtor hat back on, and I will talk about how to close more deals, how to get more business, and how to do more transactions with this process. All right, so a mortgage loan assumption occurs when a buyer agrees to take over the existing loan of a seller, becoming responsible for its repayment. The two types of assumable mortgages are qualifying and non-qualifying. However, non-qualifying assumable mortgages are really rare. They're kind of out of existence. what they existed in the pre-1990 market. When I got my license in real estate, occasionally we would see a non-qualifying assumable come up, and we would run out the door and try and buy them ourselves, because what they were is basically you just had to make an agreement with the seller and say, I want to take over your loan. You didn't have to go through any process and you could do it. But the government got rid of those in I think end of 1989 and made them all qualifying. So most assumable loans require the buyer to meet the same qualification standards as the original borrower. All right, assumable loan types and eligibility. No secret here. They're basically the FHA and VA guaranteed loans that carry an assumption clause in the deed of trust. Conventional loans do not. They carry a strict due on sale clause with no assumable rider to them. I will say, as a caveat though, because we're helping a number of people through this, in a divorce situation, it is a little bit up to the servicer, but we are helping a number of people in a divorce situation assume a conventional loan, but that's the only situation we see that happening. So let's talk first about VA loans. VA loans can be assumed by both veterans and non-veterans. However, only when the assumption is made by another veteran with what they call sufficient VA entitlement will the original borrower's entitlement be released from the loan and the new buyers substitute on, right? So entitlement, if you're not familiar with what it is, and we're in Colorado Springs where I'm based, we're very heavy military with lots of different Air Force and Army bases. When somebody serves in the military, they have a certain dollar amount that they're entitled to a guaranteed VA loan, right? And so if a buyer comes in who is a veteran who has an entitlement level equal to or greater than the amount of the loan that they're going to assume, when they buy that property, not only is the seller released from the liability on the loan, then their entitlement can release and the new buyer's entitlement can substitute on. What that means then is they have complete use of their entitlement for a future VA loan that they're going to get. Now, if a non-VA buyer comes along to assume that loan, has no entitlement, or even a VA buyer who part of their entitlement is tied up on another loan comes in and they don't have sufficient entitlement, but they want to do the assumption, the seller's entitlement will remain tied to that loan until that loan is paid off. And what that means for that seller is they then have either reduced or no entitlement left to get their next VA loan. Now, I say reduced because if you have a certain dollar amount of VA entitlement, and let's say you only used, I don't know, 200,000 of that, right? You might have remaining entitlement to still get another VA loan. Some of the stats we are seeing in our company on the deals that we are processing, about 3 to 4 in 10 deals that are VA assumptions are actually going veteran to non-veteran. So that means that the majority are going between veteran to veteran who have sufficient entitlement to also do a swap. One thing I will say, when you're working with a VA seller, one of the things you want to clarify is you want to clarify how important it is that they get their entitlement released if they do an assumption. If it's extremely important, you probably want to restrict your marketing on your sales to somebody who can substitute that out, right? And that is something you can do there. So, but don't presume, because what we see, a lot of the people who are going and allowing their entitlement to remain, they're in various situations. And some of those situations are maybe an elderly person who's not going to use that loan again. Another situation is somebody who's got so much or enough equity that's coming out of the home where they can buy the home and still be fine without doing a VA loan. We see some scenarios where there's two spouses that have VA entitlement, and so they'll leave one spouse's entitlement, use the next spouse's entitlement. And honestly, some of the situations we're seeing is at the end of the day, they just got to get the home sold. And whatever deal comes along that makes the most sense, they're jumping at. So don't make your own prediction onto what a seller will do is my recommendation. FHA loans are also assumable, but they don't have any entitlement issues like VA loans. However, they do require that the mortgage insurance be on the loan for the entire duration of the loan. So an FHA mortgage has a little extra cost whenever you have it there. Now, both VA and FHA loan programs are primarily intended for owner-occupant purchasers, but something has changed since I made this slide, and I'll talk about it further with regards to VA. All right. I'm going to nerd out here, so hopefully nobody goes too glassy-eyed on me, but I love the numbers of an assumption. So I'm going to talk about the monetary value of a loan assumption with these 4 columns here. So first thing we're going to talk about is, I call this the headline, the payment comparison. This is what gets people sort of excited when they first learn about it, right? So we're going to take a $400,000 loan and we're looking to look at it at 7% interest rate, which is equal to a monthly payment of $2,661. And we're going to compare that to a $400,000 loan at 2.75% interest, which is equal to a monthly payment of $1,633, which is equal to a monthly savings of $1,028 and an annual savings of $12,336, right? That's a big deal. That's what gets buyers off the dime. There's a mentor of Heather and I's who for years has taught, at the end of the day, buyers, they live with the payment. They don't live with the price. And so if you can show people this, they will get excited about the opportunity. All right, now we're going to talk about the shift from 22 that we saw when rates went up. And we're going to look at the effect that had on purchasing power, right? So we're going to look at those monthly payments, that low one of $1,633. Obviously, it equals a $400,000 loan at 2.75, or if at 7% for that same payment, it's only a $245,500 loan. It's a decrease in purchasing power of over $154,500 to keep the same monthly payment. That is a big ouch, and we all felt that in this industry and across the nation, right? So purchasing power was reduced to only 61.4% of its previous level when rates went up there. All right. This one I love. The next two are sort of my favorite here. This, I think, is where you really talk about building wealth with this opportunity. And I'm going to talk about it, which is interest saved over time. So the total interest paid on a $400,000 loan over 30 years is $558,036 at 7%, or $187,868 at 2.75, right? That means total interest savings over 30 years with that low rate is over $370,000 and change, right? Now let's do an assumption here, play on words. Let's say that a buyer comes along and assumes this loan in 3 years. Well, the seller, while they owned it in the first 3 years at 2.75%, they paid a little under $32,000 in interest in the first 3 years. So a buyer who assumes this loan does not have to pay that. So what that means is the amount of savings they'll realize if they then keep that loan for the next 27 years is greater than the amount of the loan that they actually assume. They will save $402,000 and change by assuming that loan versus getting it at 7% and just keeping that thing. That blows my mind. That makes me think back as a realtor that we all should have been telling every single buyer, I don't care what the price is, overbid by $50,000 because you're going to make it up if you just keep that home. I think a lot of us just underestimated that, but maybe the market was smarter than a lot of us were because people were buying them like crazy at those low rates. All right. So the next piece I'm going to talk about, I did not think about until we had this very deal that we processed. And it really perked my ears up. So I'm going to talk about older loans with a higher interest rate, because the lowest interest rate loans that are out there were originated between March of 2020 and March of 2022, which is really where you were below probably 3.5%. Sometimes as low as the lowest one we processed was 1.75%. So that's the best sweet spot for low rates. But we processed a deal recently. It was right up the street from the house I live in now, where the loan was 15 years old, right? It was a $500,000 loan that had been originated at 5.29% in 2009 and had a payment of 2773. The remaining loan balance, 15 years later in 2023, had been paid down to 358 and change, right? So the seller had paid that down in the first 15 years. The interest is front end loaded, right? So a lot of it been paid out. Now, when it went to go for sale, the house was on the market for 900,000, and it had an assumption gap of 541 and change. That's the difference between that $900,000 price and the remaining loan balance that could be assumed. The seller had paid already $336,000 in interest, because on an amortization schedule, interest is front end loaded. Most of the interest you're going to pay is coming out in the first decade and a half, right? So remaining on that loan to be paid was only $164,000 in interest for the 15-year term. So the buyer of that home was taking over that rate, taking over that 2773 payment, but the interest cost to own that home was dramatically lower than what the seller of that home had paid. So to me, don't just restrict your search to the best of the best interest rates, right? If you're financially savvy, there's a huge opportunity for wealth building on homes that have had lots of interest paid already. So anyway, I hope nobody's falling asleep on me. I'll move on from the math. We'll talk about the assumption process now, for both buyers and sellers and you as their agents, and what we do to help you through that, right? So the way this process works, whether you're getting ready to list a home or you're looking at a home with a buyer, right? The first thing you got to do is confirm the property has an assumable FHA and VA loan, right? First of all, if you know it's an FHA or VA loan, it is assumable. They all are assumable, right? So, but review the existing loan documents carefully. All parties should pay close attention to the loan amount, the interest rate, and the payment terms. Those are what you're marketing as a seller's agent. Those are what you're buying and as a buyer, and what you want to show your buyer is the asset. You can obtain an ownership and encumbrance report a lot of times from title companies to confirm that the loan is indeed an assumable VA or FHA loan. All right, ultimately, you're going to market this, and I will talk about marketing in a little bit, but an interested party comes along, or you bring an interested party. You've got to execute an assumable purchase contract. Ultimately, the servicer of that loan is who is going to issue assumption approval. And that process takes anywhere from 45 to 120 days plus. But the average for this timeline is coming dramatically down, right? I still have in here 60 to 90 days. I should probably edit it, because I'm seeing 90 is definitely getting to be the long end, unless you're with a few servicers that are still a little iffy on their systems. I would say it's probably closer to 50 to 70 now as the average. But we've had some deals get approved in as fast as 45 days. I could even edit that. We've had some deals get approved in as fast as 25 days recently. And some of the servicers who hit that 25 mark used to be the ones that were taking 120 days. The truth of this evolving market is that when they started, it was an uphill battle for us. They didn't have systems, they didn't have people. And so they had to kind of build that infrastructure. And a lot of them have done it. A lot of them have gone through a lot of pain to do it. They don't love doing this process because it's not a profit center for them, but they have to do it. And the government has kind of started to bite them for missing some of the requirements that they're supposed to do. So it is getting better, but I still think if you're getting involved in a deal, it pays to be patient and give extra time than you even think it might take in your contract, right?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So are these timelines if you use a company like yours, or if you're just straight up doing it by yourself? Like as an
Well, we will help you get the fastest timeline that's available, right? When you don't use a company like ours, you run the risk of having to figure this out and making mistakes in the process of what you're doing that can abnormally lengthen it, right?
yeah.
Because we're doing at any given time, we do this in all 50 states, and we're running 50 to 70 deals at any given moment, right? So we know the ins and outs. We have internal contacts with a lot of the servicers. We know where the mistakes come, but you can even, last thing I got here, call us to check your servicer. We've been tracking them. Um, it's great to track them because we see their trend. And so if you say, hey, I'm working with PennyMac, right? I'd say you're likely to be done 45 to 60. If you say something like, well, I'm not going to drop bad names here. I don't want to make anybody angry, but there's a few servicers that were like, yeah, you're probably going to be 90 to 120 plus, right? So feel free to reach out to us to check that.
So Randy asked if you do Florida too. So Florida as well?
Every state. We've
Okay.
got them going from Alaska to Florida, California to Maine, right? Now, buyers need a plan for the gap between the purchase price and the loan amount. Now, usually it is a cash down payment, but I'm going to address this in another slide because there's a big piece of the market that is growing here. But most of what we have processed over the last 2 years, the buyers have brought the gap in cash. The biggest gap we've seen filled was a deal in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's a $2 million sale. $1 million loan assumed, $1 million cash brought, but that buyer saved $7,000 a month in their payment, right? So there's a lot of wealthy people that are jumping on these because they know the math as well as I do. Flexibility and advanced planning are essential as the process may take time. I think it's key that you have conversations with the other side of the deal and understanding people's timelines, right? Now, I will say one of the common things we are seeing one of the things we're doing is we're vetting this transaction up front. We have the vetting done usually within a matter of days. Servicers don't look at your package submission for sometimes weeks to a month plus, right? And so we keep you out of deals that aren't going to work, right? Once you pass our vetting and once you get through like inspection and title, a lot of people, if the seller's got to move on and the buyer's got to get in, they're doing rent to closes pretty commonly. So that is an option. But be flexible, understand the timeline, have the conversations with the other side while you're in the negotiation process.
Can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
Or do you want me to wait until the end?
No, jump in anytime.
I like selfishly had Craig come on here so I could learn you guys. So I'm going to ask the questions for all of us. Does it matter? Can you be an investor?
You know what? Let me get to that one. I do have a slide for that.
Okay, cool.
All right. So you've got a contract. Yay. It's like, what do I do now? Right? Send the contract to us. You can email it to our team. I got an email, team@assumptionsolutions.com. It'll go right to our processing department, right? So get us all details of all parties involved. Basically, we're going to vet your transaction up front, like I said, to make sure it's going to work. We'll keep you out of deals that will not work. I can't tell you how many people have found us late in their process. And like, there's one item that would have killed their deal that we would have found within days that the servicer who's ultimately approving these didn't get to for 60 days. And the deal falls apart at day 60. And we would have kept you out of it right away, right? We will then, once we get past vetting, our next piece of value we're helping you do is going to help you submit that package to the servicer so it's done right the first time. When a package goes into a servicer, if it's done incorrectly, when they finally review it, they're going to kick it back and you've got to resubmit and you're at the back of the queue again. So that's how deals get abnormally lengthened, right? Because people made an error going through that process. Now, once submission happens, we're going through the process for servicer assumption approval. They're the ones who give it the, yes, it's clear to close, right? We're going to be following up with them so you do not have to on a regular basis. We have it very systematized. But at the end of the day, I will say you can only go through the process as fast as the servicer's systems allow. We know of some servicers that were running 4,000 files at any given moment, right? They're going to go with how they come in. They're going to go with that. If they don't have staff or they get abnormally overloaded, even if we have seen them traditionally been going as fast as 45 to 60 days, they might go a little bit longer. So once they issue final approval, then and clear close, then you can start booking your closing from there. And most people are closing within 7 to 10 days from assumption approval. So that is the process we take you through to get you to close. All right. Navigating a complex process with experts is important, right? We all know what it's like for agents out there, right? When they have a client who doesn't go through them. You've got 3 examples right here, right? They don't look like very happy people. The one who uses you to get their dream home down the right corner, that who looks happy. We think we're the same way. We want to make you look just as happy. We want to make you look as good. We're just a team member to help you get through this process. So, all right, another boring meme from me. All right, let's talk about what we do and what we charge. So Assumption Solutions charges each party a $950 fee, totaling $1,900 per transaction. However, the first $50 is all we charge when we start this process per side. So a $50 fee to each party. And then if we are unable to get assumption approval, or if the deal falls apart for other reasons, like say it doesn't pass inspection or whatever, we do not charge anything else. We like to say we are low cost, low risk, high value. So $950 to the seller, $950 to the buyer, right? Now, other fees that are charged in conjunction with doing an assumption, servicers have the right to charge a processing fee. Often it's under $1,000. On a VA assumption, there is a 0.5% funding fee paid by the buyer, unless that buyer has a qualifying VA disability where it can be waived, right? Outside of that, your costs relate more to like title charges, obtaining new insurance policy, regular closing costs that have nothing to do with the loan. In most cases, the cost of doing an assumption, though, is less than the cost of doing new financing. Just breaking down in a little bit example of pricing, the standard of what we see most commonly is buyer and seller splitting that fee. $950 to the seller, $950 to the buyer, upfront engagement fee to both parties. And then once we get clear to close, we issue the remaining invoice to $900 to each party. We do that through Square. It's not billed as part of closing. We view ourselves very much like any service provider that you use, like a home inspector or anybody else. And we initially tried to do it as part of closing. We found it actually created confusion and problems with servicers that delayed closing. So that's why we said, okay, let's just completely take this outside of closing. However, another example here, it does not have to be split. It can be paid by one party or even a third party. So that would mean one party's paying the $100 engagement fee, and then at the end, the $1,800 is invoiced to whichever party is paying it. We've seen multiple different scenarios with this. At the end of the day, I'll just say you have to tell us how you want us to invoice, and we'll do it however you tell us. All right.
So you get paid at the end when you get it approved.
When we get it approved, it's really close to the closing. We invoice it out. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once again, low cost, low risk, high value is our thing, right? That $50 is really all you're risking to see if the deal is going to work. Now, if the deal falls apart, we've had this happen many times where we did vet a deal and the buyer was not qualified. The seller had already paid that $50, and then they got another buyer that wanted to do assumption. They never have to pay it again. We charge it one time. It's not recharged. The same is true for a buyer where the deal fell apart like through inspection or something like that. They never had to pay it again. All right, let's talk about some of the changes we've seen since we started this. It's been an interesting journey. I mean, we had servicers when we started who thought they could just arbitrarily say, we don't want to do this. And We used to have a letter that we'd send in, was like, hey, if you blow up people's deals, who do you think they're going to sue, and all kinds of stuff. So some things have changed. You asked this question, Heather, the possibility of occupancy requirement changes. When we started across the board, owner occupant was only available. Then we started having some servicers say on VA loans, well, okay, maybe we would let non-owner occupants do this. The kicker we have found is that it's only in VA. FHA is owner occupied only. VA can do it, but the key is that the seller has to leave their VA entitlement that's tied to that loan with that loan. It cannot be substituted out. It cannot be taken off, right? So the seller in that situation has to make a choice to leave their entitlement, right? And then you can do non-owner occupied sales with VA. The potential for obtaining secondary financing. When we started, we thought this would be an option, and then whether it's truth or rumor, I don't know, but it got out there into the marketplace that the VA wanted to see secondary financing if it was done assumable, and that product just did not exist. Then I'm going to say maybe 3 to 4 months ago now, they issued kind of what they call a circular or a notice that said, basically, we don't have a problem with secondary financing. It doesn't have to be assumable. It just can't take priority over our lien. And so that has started to grow into the marketplace. We have several deals going that are doing secondary financing, but here's my comments on secondary financing. First, not every servicer is allowing it. It is subject to them being okay with that. We are starting to compile a list of ones that are not and are, and that is growing. To do the secondary financing, the products that we're seeing out there, they are pretty much limited to a max cumulative loan to value of about 90%. I do know of one product, not in every state, that is up to 95%. So what that means is the buyer is still going to have to bring 5 to 10% down in cash to the purchase price. So on a $500,000 sale, that means they're likely going to need probably $50,000 in cash into the sale, right? The products that I know of, I believe they are HELOCs, that are purchase money HELOCs, right? And so the interest rate on them is going to be significantly higher than the rate of what they're assuming, and even current market rates. Most, I would say, probably somewhere between 8 and 11%. And the buyer is going to have to qualify with what they call the blended interest rate. So let's take that $500,000 sale, $400,000 loan being assumed, right? They're going to have 10% down, let's say. So the max loan that they're going to be able to do in a second would be $50,000, with $50,000 in cash down payment. If that 2.75% rate of $400,000 is there, and then let's say their second to $50,000 is, I don't know, 8.5%, 9%, because that second is small, the blended rate is still going to be significantly below current market rates for financing a new loan, a new VA loan at, say, I don't know what they are today, but let's say somewhere 6.5 and 7, right? Somewhere in there, you're still probably coming out ahead. It will trigger, if you're going that process, it will trigger some kind of appraisal. I didn't mention this earlier, but most assumptions, you do not need an appraisal, which means you can sell the house for whatever the market will bear. Yeah, so this is growing. We expect this to add significant fuel to this marketplace. We do have several partners that if you reach out to us who are in this marketplace already, that we can connect you with as well. We aren't in the financing game. We're only in the processing game, but we're connected to several people around this industry because we are so deep in it, the people that are doing different things that are important, and I'll talk more about that as well. All right. We created something with market demand that we didn't initially have. We call it the buyer pre-verification process. We use verification, not qualification. We do not offer any financing, so we do not qualify people. But if you have a client that wants to go through this process, you can connect them with us. We will charge our engagement fee, which they never have to pay again. And we will look at them to say, would you qualify for an assumption? What would the scenario look like for you to qualify? Right? So we can help you get people who you think they would like to do this. Would they be able to? We can help you do that. Right. And then when they find a deal down the road, you come back to us with the contract. We'll engage the seller as well. The buyer's already paid their engagement fee. We'll seller pay theirs, and we'll run the deal for you. Let's see. I'm not going to spend much time here. Handling of escrow accounts. It's getting more standardized than when we started. It was the Wild West when we started. I will say this, at the end of the day, it's not fully uniform yet, but the servicer ultimately will decide how it's going to work. You know, sometimes depending on the time of year, there could be some, and when the last insurance policy and taxes were paid out, there could be some shortfalls. There could be some things that need to be made up. There could be some excess. It's a little goofy. The servicer will be the deciding factor. So just keep that in mind. This is a biggie. I hope it gets better faster. VA eligibility restoration timeline. So as we talked about before, you have a seller, they're going to sell, another VA buyer comes in with sufficient entitlement, and that eligibility for that new seller to become a future buyer, there is a timeline. What we're used to in new loans and new regular sales, right? You could go sell your house, go down the hall and buy a new house VA the same day, right? The way the guidelines work in an assumption, the restoration happens post-closing, and the servicer is mandated to notify the VA of a swap within 45 days of the closing, and then VA has 30 days to restore that entitlement to the veteran. So you could have potentially 75 days from when the seller can now close on a new VA loan. This is, quite frankly, stupid. I hope this changes with pressure, because if you can do it in a new loan, there should be no reason it can't be done in an assumption. But we all know how fast government works to get things efficiently sometimes. So this is a sticking point. So just have this conversation with people. This might mean people need to do rent to closes on what they're going to buy. They might need to do some waiting. People are finding a way around it. It's not something we're involved with because it happens internally at the servicer. So what we coach people as sellers who've done this, stay on your servicer, keep positive pressure up, say, notify the VA, notify the VA, and then don't be afraid to call the VA and say, hey, can you restore this? Can you restore this? So hopefully this gets better, but it is something to be aware of. All right. Closing more deals. All right, realtors, we all know they said it would be easy, right? Well, being a real estate agent is the least stressful career Jessica at 29 has ever had. And I went to the doctor actually yesterday, and the doctor said, what's your occupation? I said, I sell real estate. Do you drink? And I said, yes, I sell real estate, right? Heather, I know you feel this one deeply, don't you?
I actually saw something really funny on Instagram yesterday. I sent it to all my realtor friends. So
I missed it. I'll have to look it up.
I'll send it to you.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to take off the Assumption Solutions hat, and I'm going to put back on the realtor hat here and talk to my realtor people, because I love you guys. And we're going to talk about how to get more clients, and then how to, when you get a listing, how to properly expose it. I underestimated the importance of that and what people knew. And then I will talk about, before we wrap up, I'll talk about some of the things and partners that have in the marketplace that you should look into that can help you succeed. So first we'll talk about marketing potential sellers. And I'm not going to give anything that is earth-shattering here. But first thing you should do, in my opinion, is reach out to past clients and or your network with assumable loans. Highlight the value of assumable mortgages in a rising interest rate market, right? You have helped people do VA loans, do FHA loans that bought homes. They might not know that they have something special. Get the information out to them however you want to do it, right? Use social media to educate homeowners and on assumable mortgages. You can link our content. This video, once Heather sends it to me, will be on our website. And I encourage people to send it to clients, right? Say, hey, look, you might not know you have something special. This guy talks about it. Create educational videos of your own and post that explain the assumable mortgage process to the public, showcasing your expertise. You're going through this class for a reason. You want to tell people that you're an expert on it. Farming tools are a big one. There's some great ones out there. When we were looking at starting this company, my partner actually owns the largest title company in Colorado Springs, and I had him pull in Colorado Springs all of the VA loans that were originated between March of 2020 and March of 2022. And in one county, we had 14,000 that were carrying a loan below 3.5%, right? So there's all kinds of tools out there that are available to use, whether it's through title reps or I don't know, Property Radar is one I know of. There's other things out there where you can specifically look up who's got what kind of loan and when it was financed, and then you can farm to them. You can teach classes to homeowners about the value of their assumable loan in a rising rate market. And then we have on our website, we have a listing presentation flyer. You're welcome to download, throw it in with your listing presentation. Just something to say you've got a partner in Assumption Solutions to help them leverage that asset and get the deal closed. All right. Targeting buyers, very similar things here. Past clients, reach out to them. We brought clients back into the market who, when rates changed and they were payment sensitive, stepped out by saying, hey, look, especially showing that payment comparison that I went through in the numbers, showing them, here's how you save $1,000 plus a month. We got them back into the marketplace, and that's all they're hunting, right? They're payment sensitive. There's a lot of people like that. So get that information out there. Obviously, get it out through social media, do videos, do all kinds of things that are showing the numbers that I've shown you. I'm happy to give you the slides. I mean, I didn't do anything crazy to create those. I mean, there's Google calculators for all the numbers you would want to calculate in mortgage calculating and the value of loans and things like that. So collaborate with listing agents to promote listings that aren't yours. Showcase the mortgage and payment details to highlight the benefits of lower rate assumable loans. I did a test. I actually pulled on my own website listings that were listed by other agents I had on my site through the IDX feed. I just popped them into social media. And I popped like 3 in, and in one day, I think I had 600 unique visitors to my website by just posting the savings that people could realize by buying those. Listing agents want their home sold. They're just like any other agent, right? They don't care how you bring a buyer, right? So promote what they've got. Engage with veteran communities. Explain how assuming a VA loan and swapping entitlements with another veteran benefits both parties who have served our nation. There's all kinds of communities around the nation for veterans. We have a lot of them in Colorado Springs. Check your area. Host classes for buyers, teach them this process, teach them the savings. Big deal. All right, let's go on to once you get that listing though. This is getting better. The tools are getting better, but it's key to getting the deal exposed to that you properly market it, right? If you have a home that has a great view or a remodeled kitchen or a larger lot or something special, right? You're going to shout it from the rooftops to get buyers to come and look at that. Well, the same is with an assumable mortgage. It is a special asset. So first thing you do is you use MLS fields for assumable mortgages. A lot of MLSs have these fields, and you want to enter as much data as you can. Loan type, loan balance, interest rate, and payment. That is what the buyers are going to be purchasing. You can put that in. It's not like advertising an interest rate for a new loan because it doesn't change. It's not subject to how much they put down or what their credit is. I mean, they have to qualify, of course, but it's not the same as advertising certain things that you can't do on a new loan. So get that out there. Now, some MLSs let you put it in public remarks, some don't. Where I live, we cannot. We have fields for it, but I think it's important to get it wherever you can. You want to have that stuff out there, and if you can get it on public sites, I think that's a big deal. A lot of the public sites will let you edit public remarks, Zillow, Realtor.com, stuff like that. Put the stuff out there about the payment, about how much can be saved, all those kinds of things are a big deal to get buyers. And you will likely get people who come and you double end the deal because they're specifically hunting these things hard. Obviously, every listing you get probably goes on social media, but put extra emphasis on the assumption and what can be saved and what that payment is and what is out there. Flyers, everything should be on flyers, everything should be on open houses, sign riders, all of that stuff. Anywhere you can talk about this, it's a big deal. Get it exposed. It is the most unique thing in the real estate market because across the nation, FHA and VA loans are maybe at most 30% of out there. So if you've got one, I mean, 30% of the real estate market's a big market, but if you've got one, you've got a leg up on the competition. Then show buyers and their agents that Assumption Solutions will assist you in the process for a smooth closing. So many people I talk to every day, their first thing out of their mouth when they call is, hey, I wanted to call you because I've never done this before. I'm kind of nervous. I don't know the process. So if you can show the other side of the transaction, hey, I have somebody that can help us through this. It's a teammate. They do this all the time. They'll make it smooth. You will look good. I will look good. That's why we exist as a company. Show them what you've got. Show them how we can help. All right. Now let's talk about some of the experts out there and the resources out there in the marketplace to help you find property, expose property, get clients and stuff like that. This has been such a unique journey for us. So many things have grown in this marketplace. Some of them we've been sort of involved with just advising and some not. So obviously our website, assumptionsolutions.com, I'm going to promote until I'm dead. We want you to go there, get our education, get our classes. There's Assumable.io, which is a website that the people who consulted with us when they were building it. It's a nationwide platform where you can go in markets and you can look for property that is assumable on their platform. It is their model, just so you know, as real estate agents, is to refer potential clients to you. So that may be a place to develop some potential leads. The next one I'm a big fan of, assumelist.com. It was created by a realtor out of Virginia. I have done classes with him. He created a search platform where he goes into marketplace. He basically joins the MLS, and it is a pay site. I subscribe to it. I think it cost me $700 a year, but it is the most robust search site I have found for tools for locating assumables outside of your own MLS ability, right? The great thing about it is it's also something you can build searches in for clients. But what I think is really cool, yes, you can find everything that is marketed as assumable, but if an agent fails to market a property as assumable, you'll still be able to find it. So that's really cool. But the next thing that I think is really cool, it's got an off-market search, and you can pull a search with assumelist.com and find every assumable loan in your marketplace that is not available for sale. So it's a great farming tool. And then they have a little button to click, which does a little skip trace. You can actually reach out to the owners of those properties directly through that platform. So it's really cool. I'm a big fan. Now, AssumableSales.com, the next one down, it was created by the owners of the largest VA Assumable Facebook group. I think they have over 4,000 members. We do some classes in their group, and they created Assumable Sales which is designed to take people who come to the Facebook group and refer them to agents around the country looking for agents who are expert at this. So all of these resources are just great ways for you to grow your market share, to get clients and stuff like that. So I speak highly for all of them. I use them all, and I think they're great resources. So, all right, one last stupid meme here. I love real estate agents. No matter what's going on in the world right now, it could be burning down. We're out there shouting from the rooftops. Does anyone buy a house? Want to buy a house? All right, that's all I've got here, Heather. So I'm going to take it off share. And if I can figure out how, there we are. If you want to open up for questions and go from there, I'm open.
We did have a couple, but I think Noel asked, what are some of the tools to see what types of loans people have?
I know you can do it at assumelist.com. You can sort by VA, you can sort by FHA, you can run searches by the size of the assumption gap. On the off-market stuff, it kind of uses a auto valuation model to estimate what the home is worth versus what the loan amount still is. It's a great tool. I do love it. Some of those tools might be also available in assumable.io. I honestly spend more times in Assumelist because I pay for it. I have clients with searches built in it.
And then Ryan asked, how do we know if an FHA seller prepaid their mortgage insurance when they purchased? If they did, can we assume an FHA without?
I don't think that's a thing anymore. I'm not gonna, my processing team could probably better answer that question because they're 30-year lenders. That's who touches the files. I actually don't. But I think all FHA loans carry a mortgage insurance premium that you pay monthly for the life of the loan. I think that changed like 10 years ago.
Ryan, I
Oh,
see you
yeah.
want.
It was my understanding that if they made a down payment of at least 10%, then they only had to pay the mortgage insurance premium for 11 years.
I can't answer that question, Ryan. I'm not sure. Anytime I helped somebody doing an FHA loan, they definitely weren't doing 10% down.
Right.
And I know that they did drop the where it would be, you used to be able to go, okay, I've got 20% equity now, or I've paid it to a certain amount, and that mortgage insurance used to drop off, but they eliminated that.
Gotcha. I've actually got an interesting situation. I'm under contract. I'm purchasing a VA loan assumption for 2.5%. I'm a civilian and they're giving me their entitlement. And my plan is to rent it out immediately right away. And the loan servicer said that I could do that through
Yes.
carrying a mortgage. I was just kind of curious if you happen to know if all of the mortgage servicers allow for something like that, and then you could just build kind of this investment portfolio for yourself as an agent, not just looking for clients, but building, our own investment portfolios, doing it this way, and possibly even renting out the home to the existing owner immediately, just to give them additional time to live in the property, or if you're waiting around to sort of rent it out during June and July, which is, the best time to get a high rental price. You could do something like that. I was just kind of curious if you've seen that happen.
Yeah, so that's part of the change that we've seen over time. I don't think we have any servicers any longer that are not allowing an investor to assume as long as the entitlement remains. Because every VA loan, basically, anytime there's a VA loan out there, somebody's entitlement has to be attached, whether it's the old seller who's moved on or the new buyer, somebody has to have entitlement to be attached. And now one of the things with investors that if you are going to buy, you have to do it in your name, right? You can't do it through a company or an LLC, right?
Right.
So you're always buying that in your name as an investor. Or now whether you move it to an LLC down the road, I don't know. I mean,
I
I'm not
think
going
the
to get
due
into the
on sale
weeds to that.
clause kicks in, right? If you put it in
I think
corporation.
realistically it could, right? Because the servicer, if you deed it over to an LLC, they don't know if you actually sold that into an entity, but they're making the payments on the loan, or are you still on the loan? So I would be very careful and leery of that. But that's why we probably will not see like large Wall Street type investment firms doing this en masse, because they won't be able to, it has to be in somebody's individual name.
Okay. I just to give you an example, I saw a home maybe 4 or 5 months ago. I was going to make an offer on it, and then I saw that they rented it out for a substantially more than I expected. Could I go back to that seller and now purchase the home now that it's rented out for the next 2 years?
Why not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Great idea though, Ryan. I like
Cool.
that. So I don't think
Do we
we
have
have
anything in the comments, or?
in the chat. I mean, I will make a comment. Someone's ringing my doorbell, UPS. I will make a comment that if any of you all out there have done an assumption loan or not done an assumption loan, they are a lot of work and they are very confusing. We had 2 situations, and I talked to Craig about one of them, where we waited, I think 3 months, and then the mortgage company came back and said, we're not licensed in your state, so you can't even assume the loan. And I tell this to Craig and he's like, that's BS. Now, had I known about you, we would have been using you for the servicing of but they take a long time. They're a lot of work. It's like doing short sales back in the day, if you ever did them. And I would use your company all day long to not have to deal with that. So
I will say, the funny thing is that you mentioned that. So the model of our company was born out of my partner's company, Short Sale Solutions.
yeah.
Right now, the nice thing about an assumption, right? There's not a big pain point. Yeah, the servicer doesn't make money, but there's not a big pain point for them.
Yeah.
The process has gotten much better than 22. When you talk to agents who were doing these in 22 or early 23, I mean, even us, I mean, yeah, it was the Poseidon adventure, but we have gotten this point where, I mean, we have internal contacts at so many of the servicers that, like, sometimes we get people who come to us halfway through the deal and something's going wonky. And we're like, okay, I will jump in. And we call the person we're dealing with all the time at the servicer, and we get it straightened out in 5 minutes. And they're like, oh, that's the best money I ever spent. So now the best thing is bring us in at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's much easier, right? And much more streamlined from there. And if you've got any questions about, like, when you're putting together a deal or contract related stuff, I mean, I can only advise on Colorado contracts, but I can talk from that perspective that gives a lot of agents in their market, okay, I got an idea of what I want to put in here. So feel free to reach out to me. Our website, assumptionsolutions.com, you can send a message anytime through there. It's actually going directly to me first. If I can't answer it, I send it to my processing department, who's probably way smarter than me anyway, but they're too busy doing files, so I handle the incoming stuff. And you're welcome to call me through anytime as well. I'm usually the guy who's going to call you back if you leave us a message. So
Amazing. Anybody else have questions? This has been super awesome and I had quite a few questions coming in and they got answered through your slides. So I appreciate you so much, Craig, for taking the time out of your December, and everybody for joining. It's getting close to the holidays. So if we don't have any more questions, we will end, and just thank you all for participating. And thanks, Craig, for doing this today. It was really helpful. Definitely
my pleasure.
hitting you up on the next assumption loan and doing some marketing for them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Craig.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.